to Pack Talking with our friend Ian Grant, and also a great dog trainer in Vermont, and someone whose social media has really picked up. And I want to ask you a couple questions on that, and all kinds of other good things about Ian, Mr. Golfer as well. And
those are the days.
We'll delve into the life of master trainer here, Ian Grant.
Yeah. Be on here, guys. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, our pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Very happy to have you on.
Maybe to start off the podcast, we should have Ben sing to me, since that's what he did like on my first trip. Picking me up at the airport and bringing me to the DPC or the hotel. Maybe we should start off by doing that.
I forgot.
Could you ever have been more welcome, bro? Like, Ian's like, I was worried about joining this team maybe, and now I got this guy that's singing at the very least. Yeah,
it's good times.
What song did you sing?
Who knows?
It was a Blake. It was a Blake Shelton song. It was the that was it.
Oh, you always sing that one. You love that one.
Yeah,
that's the classic song right there.
I go, you'll appreciate this song.
I don't know why. I don't own a lab. I never had a dog named Red. Like
it was a lab. It was a red tick.
Okay. All right.
Well, it's just it's a love of dogs. That's what he was expressing. You know,
for sure.
Yeah.
Did we go straight to Santa Monica, or did we even go to the hotel? Did we go right to the hotel?
No, we went to Santa Monica first.
Basically kidnapped you. I go, hey man, we're getting oysters. Yeah.
To me, and then gave me seafood.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Back at it, maybe you're just trying to seduce me. I don't know.
Wow. Welcome. I was like, you know what?
That's Ben. Always loving, always seducing.
Don't feel too don't feel too special. I do that to everybody, I'm pretty sure.
Nice.
I always try to make everyone feel good.
Well, tell us about your first experience coming to the DPC, Ian. Describe the whole like joining of the team and like your first because you did stuff at the Florida one before, correct?
So I was at the first one in Florida. So that was January 2014.
As a student or as a
student? Yeah. So Art was in the back doing the audio visual. Steve was, which I think they were volunteers at that time, right? So like I remember seeing Steve like picking up the food trays and picking up poop and just kind of helping along the side of the stage. And so of course, just like anybody that goes through it, you're like, how do I get that job? Right? Like just to be surrounded by that. So it was Liz, who, obviously, right, who invited me for the first one, which I think it was November 22, I think was the first one that I came out to for a couple of weeks or whatever. But I have to tell you, so like that morning that I woke up, because I have to leave the house at like 2:30 in the morning to get, hour to the airport. You got to be there a couple hours early, right? It all adds up. I remember waking up and I'm like, I think I have a sore throat and a runny nose. I was like, and I even woke up Rachel. I'm like, I don't know if I'm feeling well. Like, especially like COVID, right? So you're like, you got COVID, you got to stay home. And I was like, this be happening right now. And she was like, just get to the airport, like just go through the whole motions and everything, and let's see how you're doing. And so I was a little nervous at that time, but I got to the airport, started feeling better, and then I was good to go. And then of course I had the red carpet was rolled out to me by Ben here. Whole thing. But I think for me, the first time driving into the DPC, I think it was more like the size of it was kind of what got my attention, and you see the big dog psychology center sign and in, and then anytime you're like the first day at a new job, it's always awkward, right? Like I even tell my clients when I start doing leash work with them, I'm like, you're going to feel like a fish out of water because you're learning something new and your dog's learning something new at the exact same time. Can't not feel that.
Yeah.
It's the energy that goes into it. And so getting out there, and it's more just kind of getting your bearings. The time change doesn't bother me at all. Like, I think you're just so pumped getting there and, seeing everybody being a part of the camaraderie. Uh, Welcomed it with open arms. I was just kind of like, I'm here for the ride. Let's just kind of see where this goes. That's kind of the way that I took it.
Hey,
Nice.
you know what? He probably came driving down the DPC down Blue Sky Road, just listened to an amazing song. Maybe sang by me as well.
Maybe.
I'm sure there was the one in the saddle is worth two on the ground, or whatever, or two in the ground, or one on the ground, whatever that song is you sing every time.
Is what's real funny though is when you go down Blue Sky Road, I've taken so many people there for their first time, and I always in my mind like I'm putting this song on at this point. They're gonna, right. Yeah, that's
DJ
awesome.
Ben over here.
I love it.
The same experience.
Separate. It's just select to them.
Sweet. Okay, well, tell me about your social media game and what started ramping it up, and bring us through your journey.
Like, I never really got onto Instagram until like a few years. I mean, I was on it, and like when I had my facility, I had one of the girls just kind of taking over the Instagram part of it. I did the Facebook thing because at that time I felt like Facebook was bigger than Instagram, just because it was more body language stuff. I don't know. I didn't probably put as much into it as I should have. And then they started to get into Instagram probably around that same time, like 2021, 22, somewhere in there. I can remember sitting at 15,000 followers for like, it seemed like forever. Just couldn't gain any traction. Didn't know how it worked. And the thing about social media is every video you put up, you're like, this one's going viral. I know it. And then you're like 200 views later, you're like, well, that's not going anywhere. And so it was honestly probably the lion video is like the first one that really went viral with the dog meeting the stuffed lion. And I think a lot of it was taken out of context because it's a stuffed lion and it is a stuffed lion. Obviously, the dog doesn't know what it is because they haven't seen anything like that. The context of it was, let's see how this dog reacts to something new, out of place. Is it? I feel like that's a great way to teach a client about their dog. They're seeing body language and it tends to slow the dog down and they're not going 100 miles an hour. So it gives me a chance to like point out the ears and how the dog's moving and how it's curling its body and where it's going and it's standing behind the owner. And so I think altogether that ended up with like over 30 million views across my social media.
Nice.
And so that boosted me to like something thousand. And then there was a span, it was probably like April of this year. I think I had like 5 out of 8 videos, like in the span of like a week, that all peaked over, they went over 1 million views. So Crazy. It was just like, and of course, when Instagram sees that, they see the account going crazy. They're just starting to put it in front of anybody and everybody. And then before I know it, I'm up to like 260,000 just on Instagram.
That's crazy.
It just took off, and I just kind of keep plugging along with it, and you just put up stuff that you think is going to help people out.
Do you think you get more business from Facebook or Instagram?
I like 3 weeks ago, I had 2 Zoom calls. I had a Zoom call with somebody from Sweden and a Zoom call with somebody from Spain. And like last week, there was 2 other Zoom calls that I had. One was Arizona and the other was Massachusetts.
That's tight. I didn't think about that kind of.
So they see something and then they reach out and they go, I have a couple questions. I'm like, all right, what are your questions? I'm like, well, that's really easier for me to discuss. Just give you a quick tip over and flip the switch for you and make your dog better. Like we need to dig into this a little bit, So kind of where that's led. And thankfully today we have that ability to call virtually with anybody, anywhere, and help them with their dogs. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. I think it's really cool. It's awesome.
Totally. You used to have a facility as well, right? And now you've closed that facility. Is that correct? Or did you sell it, or what?
Yeah,
how'd that go?
No, I was renting the space. So I rented it for about 10 and a half years. And then the owners wanted to get out of the building, retire, the whole thing. So left me a little high and dry, but honestly, it kind of, it made it so I had to figure out what to do in that moment, what I can offer. So it's been primarily in homes and virtual trainings. And I will tell you, having a facility, I was more in the facility giving lessons than I was at home. Now that I'm in the home so much more, you're in that environment, right? You're there when the dog hears that certain doorbell, or you're there when they see the car drive by the house. So you get to work with the client in that moment right then and there. And I think how much training you do, you just can't replicate that anywhere else. It's their home environment. So it's led into in-home trainings, which is good.
Well, you're creating an imprint in the environment that it's most important to like have under control. So that's why I think the in-home is always going to be better than because we have dogs that come here and we have in-home as well. And I feel we usually have the dogs come here after an in-home because we like to basically get everything set up with the house, because that's where all the issues stem from normally, unless it's like, the dog is walking and it's a problem outside. But yeah, so that's awesome. So quick question, you would not have closed had the owner basically kind of closed the doors on you in a sense, huh?
They ended up selling the building, and so I had to renegotiate rent and stuff with the new owners who pretty much didn't want any part of. I don't think they really wanted me there, honestly, as I look back at it. So
They wanted
it
it
was
easier.
yeah. So it's just one of those things. It's 10 and a half years to be in a facility, and previous to that, I was doing it for 6 years out of my house, for boarding and daycare and such. So uh, it's crazy to look back and think I put in a decade into a facility. Like, kind of crazy, and we did board and trains there in the past too. And I think you can blend that together between a board and train, because there are some dogs, there are some dogs that you just need to remove from the situation. Like, okay, we need to kind of evaluate the dog's perceptions of things, change it, and then let's work it back into that environment again.
Do you see that same issue problem, or is that more of what you do maybe when you first start and now you don't need to take the dog outside of that environment? Or do you find yourself now going, damn, I wish I had that dog up for a week? I always
Yeah.
I got rid of my boarding train to a degree, and I'll loosen the jar for like 5 days, like just keep it in my house, and then go about whatever other process we're going to do, privates or.
I think so it's one thing that I've changed is I don't work with any aggressive dogs anymore. I just felt like I couldn't ever guarantee to the client that the dog would never bite again. The more I thought about that, the more I was like, I'm not comfortable with doing that. If I'm not comfortable taking a dog in and going, I can make the dog facility for 2 weeks and it won't bite anybody, but I can't guarantee in that owner's home that it's going to do the same thing. And so and this is just me, and I know I'm in the minority with this because we can't control dogs 24/7. I can't take a dog and be like, yeah, I'll help you. I'll train this dog. I'm going to give it back to you, and we're going to go 2 months with no incident, and then the dog's going to light into, the neighbor or the grandmother or whatever. I just looked at that like that's my name on that dog, and so I just
I think
that
there's
on top of that, I coach, right? Like I coach kids, basketball, soccer, kids, my fingers and toes. I want all that ability to do everything that I need to.
I think there's a real strength in you being vulnerable and saying, hey, you know what, maybe I don't want to deal with this, because a lot of people, they're like, I just got to do it, I gotta prove myself in a sense, or have like this bravado about I can handle any dog, you know what I mean? Whereas you're like, there's a real strength in the vulnerability of saying, look, man, I'm not comfortable. I know if it came and lived with me for the rest of my life, I would have this dog on point, but I see things that the owner doesn't see. And so I can, make sure the dog doesn't go into a mode where it might have an act like some sort of, regression.
We took a dog, been in my facility for like 2 years or so, somewhere in there. I took in this big, like, American pit bull. Dude was a beast. Took him in for a 3-week board and train, and he had some like aggression. And as I look back at it, you know it when you're in it, but as I look back at it, that dog was above my skill set. I just didn't have the ability to much to work that dog through what it needed to be worked through. Remember, it was literally like day 18 or 19. I was going to get that dog to take it out to do like a social session with it. And I walk around the corner, the dog's in the kennel, and that dog looked at me the exact same way that day as he did day one. Like, are you going to push it again today? Like, is this really what we're going to do? And I remember sitting there going, dang, like it's been this long and I haven't made a dent yet.
Yeah.
I at that time that the people that I was learning from more aware, and this is for any young trainer out there, but made me aware of what my limit was, what I should be working with. Like any beginner trainer out there needs to work with the aggressive dogs that are like teeny tiny, right? So you're not going to get hurt. And so came for that dog to go home a couple days later, and I was like, really awkward because the way that I ran it business wise is I took 50% of the payment up front, right, for the board and train, and the other 50 at the end. And I was like, I have to charge this guy the other 50%, and I didn't make it far with this dog. I felt guilty taking that guy's money, and he was kind of convinced that the dog was going to have to be put down just because of the severity of it. And so I don't know if my feeling of that kind of like aggressive dogs kind of stems from that, but trainer here in Vermont that does great with aggressive dogs. And I refer. So I'm not saying I can't help you go fend for yourself. I'm just saying I can't do it, but here, this person can handle this, and this is who you need to talk to. So I have no problem with that.
So who do you find, what kind of dogs do you find you excel with the most?
The nervous and skittish dogs.
They can be biters as well.
Sure, for sure. But I think, so it's just like aggressive dogs. When you walk in, you're kind of like, when's this dog going to come at me? Right? Like that's the kind of the feeling that I get. And honestly, I don't enjoy that feeling of when is this dog going to come at me? I look at it as like, if I see the nervous or scared dog, I go, okay, I know every movement that I make right now is under a microscope.
Yeah.
That I know every little twitch that I make. I know if my feet goes 6 inches forward, that dog's going to look at me like, what are you doing? I find that more fascinating, that sensitivity to the dog that's going to give me this huge display and
intensity.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, when you work with a skittish or nervous dog, that moment where they start to go, actually isn't so bad, me is like so rewarding. Even if it's them taking 2 steps towards me or 2 steps towards the thing that used to scare the out of them, I'm just like, oh, that's music to my ears.
It's beautiful. It is a beautiful moment. I love that.
That's definitely a big win.
Yeah. Who would you say, let's go. I've asked this question to Steve as well, but besides Caesar, who has been your biggest mentor, and what was the greatest lesson you learned from them?
Are we talking dog training world or in general?
It could be it could be both. Give me one from the real world and one from just dogs.
The real world, it would honestly be my dad. He was my coach with baseball growing up, but wise, he'd always tell me anybody can be beaten on any given day. That's all there is to it, right? I was a pitcher, so I always had that in my mind. He also said, things not working, you have to adjust. As much as he said that when I used to be a pitcher, I also look at that in like, in business isn't working, you have to adjust. If something isn't working with the dogs, you have to adjust. If it's not working in a relationship, you have to adjust, right? There's always something there as far as like you can relate it to. I say that too. My mother hated this saying as a kid. I hated it. Now it makes so much sense. But she always used to say lessons are repeated until they're learned.
That's right.
I just like, you can take that to the bank with whatever you want to talk about, because coach these kids in basketball or soccer or whatever, you have to keep doing this so that you understand it. And I know it's boring and I know it sucks, but look at where you're going to be on the other end. That's the thing that we as trainers can do. We know what that dog is supposed to look like. We can go through those and we can repeat them. But to a dog owner, to them, sometimes that seems like Mount Everest and they can't get through it.
Hey, are you pushing those kids a little bit? You go, hey, one more back. That's right.
I mean, you have to, because if you don't, then we're going to leave you. Right?
That's
like
great. I can see you out there. Do you find yourself getting greedy and go, man, I shouldn't have done that one last push?
I don't see myself getting greedy, but I think that's also our awareness too, Ben, right? Because we're natural watchers, observers, body language, right? People or dogs. It's more of like when I see the kids like heavily, I'm like, okay, I hit my limit, right?
We need to end it now and cap that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's kind of the way that that is like, that's pretty cool. It's pretty, connect with a kid and connect with a dog. And I had a shy girl. I coached a co-ed basketball team last year, and shyest girls, it was funny. One of the shyest girls you'd ever meet. She wouldn't say much. The best on our team. Not confident, and I just kind of kept pushing just a little bit, right? Sensitive, right? So you can't push hard and go overboard. So,
but you keep a little bit of pressure there.
A little bit, right? A little bit of pressure, because if you put too much, it's going to break her. She's going to back up. She's going to shut down the whole thing.
Gator roll.
Before a game started, I told her, I said, "You're going to jump ball tonight." She goes, "What?" And her eyes got big. You can jump higher than pretty much every kid on our team. You're going to do jump ball. It was like, okay, right? So she walked out. She's really awkward in the center circle for the jump ball for basketball. The boy across from her. So now you have that whole dynamic too. So ball goes up. Both their hands hit the ball at the same time, and it spins. Got started, and the game started. First time out, I said, "Fight him. Like, he didn't beat you.
Yeah.
You did it. Look what you did because of what you can do." And so that was the time where it was like time to shine. She did the jump balls for the rest of the season, because now she was like, "Do it." Like, hell yeah, you can do it. Like, have at it.
The only one we want to. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of cool to build that up, So it was fun.
It's beautiful how that's like connects in with dog training as well. You know what I mean? Basically, you have to apply just enough pressure so that they keep moving forward to do the thing you want them to do, but not overwhelm them at the same time. You know what I mean? And you found the specific thing that she excelled in, and you made her feel good about it, and that's something we do in dog training as well. You know what I mean? So it was beautiful. It's a great analogy for both. And I also found real wisdom in the advice your dad gave you with, you have to, if something's not working, you have to adjust. It's like evolution. You have the most adaptable creatures are the ones that are going to survive the most. So it's the ability to change. Go ahead, Ben.
The one you said where you go, even the best player can lose. What was that? Is that how it went?
On any given day, basically.
Yeah, he said anybody can be beaten on any given day.
See, that's why you don't work with aggressive dogs. You go, hey man, maybe all it takes is one time.
Yeah, but he was always like, he always coached me in baseball, right? And being a pitcher, so I can just remember like in Little League days, and you see these guys that you're playing in an all-star game or something, and they're bigger and everything, and he's like, anybody can be beaten, doesn't matter. That was his way of like instilling confidence in me. He wasn't like, come and be strong and be the football coach at the pep rally. It was just like, and maybe that, as I say it out loud, maybe that's because intellectual in how he approached sports, and I think I am too. I'm athletic as far as like not the fast runner, not the high jumper, but I can use my brain better than most that I'm on the court with. Yeah.
It's like Larry Bird. Larry Bird was never the fastest and never the highest jumping, but his basketball acumen was so high that he was one of the best players to ever play the game.
Hey,
agree
100%. He has to play a good game of Monopoly.
He wants to play that all the time, and I can't. It's too long, man. It's too long of a game.
He's ready to go 2 days. Huh?
No thanks.
And also, the advice your mom gave you is perfect with the dog training as well, about the lesson being repeated. That's what we have to do. We have to go to the dog and find whatever's bothering them and go and repeat that lesson until they've come to a place of understanding and calmness. Ben's got a little member of the pack running around. I saw coming.
Yeah, my
We
dad
got
got
Lena here too, all crashed out from her bike ride earlier today. So, but yeah, we encourage dogs on the podcast. So if you have one in the area, you can bring them over. We love to see them.
My office is now at my mom's house, so that's where I am now, and I do all my calls here and stuff unless I'm at home.
Do you not have good internet at your house?
Not.
Hey, I'm at my parents' house right now, and I get 3 megabytes per second at my house, and so I got to come down the road. So my one dog's here. People are going in and out the door. She's like, "We got people coming in and out. There's a lot going on."
Yeah, for sure.
Country. So do you Sid? Do you board any clients' dogs now, like special clients, old clients?
Nothing at all. I mean, thought about it, but it's still like it just doesn't. Doing like daycare and boarding out of my house for 6 years, like I don't miss it. That was just literally days I wouldn't leave the house.
You turn
It's not healthy.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, we do the boarding at the house as well, and in the training or whatever. And every day we're leaving the house for walk and everything, but it's just we're on that loop. Basically, we have that routine of.
You're a farmer, bro. You just don't have cattle. You just have people's pets.
Well, they're the cattle. Yeah, that's true.
And honestly, too, Bobby, as you mentioned that, when I used to do my podcast and I was interviewing all the trainers and such, I go through the list, but there are not a lot of trainers in our industry that have a facility for kids.
No, I don't have either. So
there's not. And I'm sure the names are rattling through your brain right now. There's not a lot. There's going to be there's going to be more that don't have both of those than not. And so look back at that, and it's hard to juggle like kids' sports and picking them up from school and dropping them off and that kind of stuff. And so it can be difficult to, the people in our industry that have had a lot of dogs that stuck at their facilities for long periods of time have gone through some serious mental health stuff.
Yeah, it's a real risk in this industry is you get burnt out on it, and and the money is good, so you continue to go and you continue to feel burnt out, and that's when you're not doing a service to the dog. You're definitely doing a disservice to them because you're not 100%. And so what we did to combat that is we'll work for 2 months straight, basically, and then we take weeks off. You know what I mean? Just so that we have that recharge, so that because we can't pour from an empty cup. So we take that time. Today is actually day 1 of having no dogs for us for 1 week. So we're feeling pretty good. We're going to go.
It's kind of a weird feeling though, because then you're like, we gotta go.
I don't know what to do. Like I'm just dogs right now. Yeah.
And see,
it is a fish out of water feeling.
Yeah. I've got ducks now. I don't know if you guys know that.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Like we started out with 7 and then we added 4 more and then we let all those eggs hatch. So we got 17 ducklings. So we got like 28 ducks. But you talk about working with a sensitive animal, man, those ducks, like any motion towards them and they all move as a flock. They all like, he's coming towards us. He's coming towards us. And it's been a very humbling experience trying to create a relationship with them. The interesting part of this, and you guys will appreciate it, being trainers and people to listen to will, talk about how quickly dogs can let go of things or of certain situations. If there was something that the dog didn't like, how long it may take to recover from that. Like I can walk out in the yard, I can walk towards the 17 babies, if you will, which are like the size of a partridge right now. Walk towards them where they're like, oh, I'm going to start moving. I grab a little food and start crinkling it. They're like, oh, food, we're good. And they'll come right back. But if I disappear and go back inside and come back out and walk towards them again, they're going to move away. Like, so it's this like balancing act of, I don't want to put that much pressure on them to make them feel like they have to be afraid of me. I also want to act natural too. You know what I mean?
You
They're
know,
very much living
you
in
know
the moment.
what some positive reinforcement trainers do is they just fast them, and then when you fast them, and then that it sounds crappy, but that's what people do for farm animals though, for like show for 4-H and stuff to work to work pigs a certain way or to like those people that do that little cattle prod thing and they look and they're moving them to the food. They do it.
I could ever do that to any of my animals, fast them for the
No,
sake of them being like,
no.
want to be with me. We're negotiating. It's not organic.
It turns into, well, yeah. You ever seen people walk goats and stuff or that or this or that? They're like, man, that goat's like best friend.
So
He
I'm
wants
not.
that food. He's hungry.
I'm gonna pay you guys to be friends with me and for Ben to sing at me more.
Hey, I'm just giving you an option people do out there. No, hey,
Nice.
you know what's funny is that the chickens. I have 8 nephews, and when they come by and they go, how they act, I'm like, don't be a chicken. That's what chickens do. Chickens move like chickens do. Chicken is, and
Sure.
yeah, they're chicken. That's for sure. Ducks are loud though. Ducks are loud.
But it's there's a pecking order, man. It's interesting to see the ones that are like forward, the ones that are like, just kind of hanging out, checking things out. And then I've got one big one. He always like, anytime I'm tossing like, they're dried mealworms to him, he's always in the back, like he's sideways if I'm over here.
Oh,
Always.
He's an alert.
He go after him because, after the food on the ground, because the other ones are like, get away. So he already knows even go down to the ground for
Is there one duck that runs the whole roost or fly?
They follow her. Yeah, it's a female. We named her Mango. And yeah, they tend to follow her around.
So there's a definite pack order in yours, front, middle, and back. In that
flock
pack.
Psychology.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
they go like this.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's been interesting to watch it from our perspective, right? When I said we're always observers, always taking information in, and it's been interesting to watch the dynamic and getting closer and closer and closer to you, which is good, right? But they're still like, I'll take this worm, but what are you doing? Are you trying to reach for me?
Pray.
Every motion is everything you move. Like, did you just move? They're so sensitive. It's been kind of cool to work with.
Will they fly away or these ducks don't fly?
It's a breed that doesn't fly, so we don't have to worry about it.
That's a really unlucky breed, isn't it?
Right.
Imagine being like built like a lion and you go, I can't run. But I will
I have this big giant mane, but I can't run.
Yeah.
Eat grass actually.
Yeah, I've got flat teeth. I don't have the sharp ones.
That's fun.
I've got cow teeth.
If you could give your younger self a bit of advice, what would be the one bit of advice about dog? Oh, and we got to go back to your dog training mentor after as well. But to answer yourself, yeah. What would you give your younger self advice? What have you struggled with? Would you say that you think you could have given yourself some sort of advice that would have been beneficial?
Training?
Yeah, in dog training and in dog training first and then in life.
I think for dog training, it's being aware of your own skill set, because like this is the one thing that I have this conversation with another trainer. Know as a trainer where you are in the grand scheme of things, right? You never know at like what level you're at, your abilities are, what you're not ready for. Like for me in the beginning, I didn't know what I could do. I didn't know what my capabilities were. There's nobody, like when I started, Facebook was around. This was 2000. I caught Caesar's for it was 2004 that I first watched one of his episodes. 7 when I started my business, it was just like, I'm just going to get all these dogs together. This works, right? This is like some things that we don't know won't hurt us, but I think probably take it a little bit slower and realizing like I have to work with aggressive dogs. And I think I first started and realizing there was a whole Facebook community of dog trainers. It was like, oh, and a name for yourself. You have to work with that dog that's going to rip anybody's leg off. to be successful. Your question too, Bobby. There's a trainer, George Cockrell of Washington D.C., Maryland area, and I remember when I first met him, and he asked me how old I was. I might have been like 30. What has been 10 years ago? So I was like 37, and he goes, "I've got leashes older than you," and I went, "Dang, okay. Well, that puts that into perspective." But he goes, "You're always going to make as much money working with puppies as you are with those dogs." Nasty, aggressive dogs. And that was the first time I was like, huh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That
I
got my
tell Carly
attention.
that little dogs pay as much as big dogs, so try to manifest the little dogs to come into our doors.
The only issue I have with that is I just feel like I'm not obligated to help people that have those kind of dogs, but they aren't going to be able to get like help anywhere. Like I don't have anybody I'd refer to. I guess I mean I could refer people to like my former employees that own their own businesses, which I don't know if I want to go send them to them. But
I get where you're coming from, Ben, and I do agree with that, because back in the day, like when I took that dog for 3 weeks, I didn't have anybody else in Vermont that I felt like I could even send somebody to. I think in this day and age, as I look back too, because when we were doing board and trains, people were bringing their dogs to us from all over New England, even like see me in person or even seen my facility in person. Somebody's driving up from Connecticut to leave their 2 dogs off with us for 2 weeks. So I look at things a little differently now, of like our networks are bigger now than they ever have been,
yeah,
because of if
I just look
somebody,
at. Go ahead.
to me, if somebody truly wants to work and fix their dog, drive 5 hours
Yeah,
to drop their dog off somewhere. They're going to drive 6 hours. Maybe the other choice is euthanasia, right? And 6 hours doesn't seem that bad compared to what the option is.
So,
yeah.
what did this trainer basically? What was the big lesson you learned from him besides he had leashes older than you?
I think to me, he was always very honest with who he was working with. Somebody walking up to him and started like a life story. Sat there cool as a cucumber. We're eating our lunch, right? And they kind of like vented at the person, and he goes, "Well, that's all your bullshit."
Hmm.
Like because he was saying all the dog stuff was all it came from you. And it was as real as I don't think I could get away with saying that kind of thing. I just don't have that personality. But that was the first time where I was actually like, this actually is coming from people, and this is, we're causing issues with our dogs, and we're just not aware of it, right? The first one, obviously, Caesar was. Langston has been great for me. I bounce things off of him. I look at it as like I've never had the one person that I've followed the entire time. I've been the person of like what they do. I'm going to take a little bit of that, and I kind of like what they do, and I'm going to take a little bit of that, and what they do, and take that. The other part of it that I feel like talk about having mentors, look at it and go, this person has taught me everything. We also have to take into account our experience too, and everything that has created us who we are. The cool part about like working with dog trainees, because the order of dogs that I've worked with from day one up to until now can be replicated again by anybody. You can't put the exact same order of dogs. It'll be different for you, Ben, for you, Bobby, right? The dogs you're working with, and so that creates a different trainer. In my perspective, we're all kind of our own individuals. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah,
you sprinkle in what you're learning from different people, and then have who you are and why you do it and your experience.
nice. I like that.
Absolutely, that's good.
Do you have any questions you wanted to pose there, Ben?
No, yeah, he kind of. I had many questions, and then he kind of answered the question as answer your question, which kind of let him answer mine because I know at one point you did work with Oregon Tails too, and you know that's one company I definitely, or a company or group or whatever you want to call that.
I will tell you too, Jonathan is one of the most like coolest, calmest guys you'll ever see in your entire life. The way that he talks, the way that he moves, the way that he works with a dog, like, because we hosted him for a workshop a few years ago. Different than any other workshop I've been a part of or a trainer that I learned from. It's just very, very different. Handling to me was probably like second to Caesar kind of thing, like just seeing what he could do with a dog and all that kind of stuff. But like Ben, when you said just enough pressure on that you're not gonna, scale, but I feel like that's where he had that ability to just like on a needle point with a dog, just be able to just not push it too far, but help that dog learn and everything. So his book influenced a lot of he did before I got done at the facility, because I had work for me. We had this what we call the dynamic canine program.
I remember that.
So Ethan, who worked for me, would take all these dogs for a pack. So he was doing this while I was doing lessons. All the dogs for a day that that he had that day, take them for a pack walk, bring them back, let them rest. He'd set up like a little course inside the daycare room, and then he'd walk them all through it one at a time. And after the course of a couple of months of doing this, he set up a different course, and he could just lead them through without even touching the leash or touching the dog. Created that relationship with him to just like follow his direction. Super creative. The Kuranda beds, right? So he would take those and set them up all on their sides, create a maze with a daycare room, and he would send a dog in they could figure out. And when they came out the other side, he'd celebrate with them. It's just like, that's pretty cool with those dogs. So it was, he led them, took them on. He was their teammate, their guide, everything. So that all stemmed from, and he did the leash work too. So it all stemmed from kind of the Oregon Tails in the sled dog experience in the sled dog world too. It was pretty cool to see.
Cool. I think that's sled. He does the scheduling too, doesn't he, Ethan? That's awesome.
So he went and started his own business too. So Bobby, to get back to your question, now that I say this out loud, when you said like, what would I tell my younger self? One thing I would say is that believe how many people that are going to work for you are going to end up in the dog business.
Nice.
So I've got 2 girls that have worked for me that are vet techs. So they have the experience of working with me, and now they're in the vet world. And I've got 2 others that went and created and started their own businesses.
Nice.
Cool.
Speaking of vet techs and stuff, don't you think there should be some sort of program that like vet techs should go through, or vets as well, that kind of they have to learn how to do a little bit of the like dog psychology, learning a little bit of pressure here and there? Because I feel like and grooming as well. I feel like they're trying to get stuff done so quickly that if they just had a little bit more knowledge, it might not take that much longer of time if they're doing it correctly. And sometimes it'll probably take a long time if it's a real like nervous pack dog or whatever, flighty dog. But you know what I'm saying? Like there should be some program for groomers and for vets so that they can deal with these dogs a little bit better and not maybe leave such a negative impact sometimes on when they're doing stuff.
I think the one thing that they could do requires no training, be the biggest adjustment, to talk way less
to the dog.
To the dogs. You don't have to like. You can certainly teach a vet tech how to handle a leash. Chances are, because that environment's a pressure cooker and they're only going to handle that dog once or twice a year, the dog's not going to be able to retain that information. So how is that going to change, right? Came back regularly, it would be different. So I agree wholeheartedly with you that I think there should be a little bit of knowledge. It's the excitement and everything that goes along with it. Like and my vet a couple of years ago, a little Frenchie in May for her annual checkup or whatever. And if they were drawing blood or whatever the situation was, or maybe it was just a vaccine, to get 2 that day. So they brought her off into the other room, which I'm like, well, I'm fine. Like, she's not going to react because you're giving her a vaccination and I'm here with you, right? I'm not that person, but go ahead and do your thing. go in for a couple minutes and come back out. And they said, we're only able to do one. We need to do the other one. Can you hold her? And I was like, yes, right? A little squirmy, so whatever. But so the one tech has the needle holding her, and the other one's kind of holding her and talking to her in this high pitched voice. She's going, it's all right, it's all right. And I'm like, hold up. I share that energy. Don't let me because also when she's squirming a little bit, I'm holding her, and when she squirms, I squeeze a little bit, and when she stops, I release a little bit. Like communication is through this; it's not through all that excitement,
emotion.
And so when that stopped from the vet tech talking, like I could feel her relax, and I'm like, go ahead, and we were good. Like so, I feel like that's probably one of the biggest adjustments they could make that doesn't require any training, any investment financially from whoever owns the companies and stuff, but it definitely could be changed.
I think though that the clients like that. Oh, they talk to my dog like that when they don't have the knowledge. You know what I'm saying? That this is not beneficial to the dog, like because that's what like the majority of people do. They talk to. It's okay when the dog's scared. They do. You know what I mean? So there needs to be some sort of knowledge when you're like, it's just basic knowledge that we should all have, I think, not necessarily. And especially if you're in a vet tech or a dog grooming or, or handling dogs on a regular
The vet
basis.
tech and the whole vet world, Bobby, they do not believe that dogs are pack animals. So dog psychology is out the window.
You don't have to care if they're pack animals to not talk to them. You don't need to talk to.
It just goes so much beyond that, though. You see what I'm saying? Like they're not taught to deal with the dog in a state or in a certain philosophy.
Well, they also probably get paid for putting dogs on medication and stuff, so it doesn't behoove them to necessarily get the dog to be calm naturally. So, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's maybe not that nefarious, but it's still.
We have to look at it this way of like, okay, I'm going to I talk kids all the time just because English speaking people and kids there's some similarities. Coaching a kid basketball or how to dribble the ball from one end of the court to the other, I'm not going to praise him at every single dribble going down the court. I'm not going to. I feel like that's what happens with dogs in those types of situations, or even if we go into a client's house, they feel like they have to praise their dog every single second. Trust me, if these kids is able to dribble from one end of the court to the other, we're going to celebrate at the end. Or I may give a little cheer on halfway, but I'm going to do it dependent on who that kid is. If it's that quiet girl that I had do the jump ball, give her a few like, way to go, nice job, right? If it's a kid on the team that can handle the ball really well, I'm going to give him an added difficulty, and then we're going to celebrate at the end. Like,
yeah,
that's the biggest thing that see when they see Caesar or any of his trainers or us is that they're not seeing us reward the dog every second. Reward the dog. I reward the dog. I'll celebrate with them at the end of something. We'll cut loose. I don't care. Gets happy and joyful, especially if they're scared or nervous. Let it ride. Like that good stuff to come out. I want that brain to experience like joy. I feel like we have to like step of the way, cheer that dog on and reward it.
It's giving affection too much. It's something that the dog owners constantly do as well. So it's a good point to like, you got to be judicious with your affection. So, yeah.
We have to let them know what to expect from us. And I think you're going to see more growth out of a dog and out of a child. You can let them go through a little bit of difficulty and finish something, then step of the way. Good job, good job, good job. Oh, at the end, you did great too. Here, let's do it again. Like it just is, and it's exhausting for me. I with a client this morning, I'm up to his dog behind the gate, and he goes and he's like, sit, right? Dog jumping up on the gate, and dog's not doing it, and the whole thing. He gets up to the gate, dog jumps, he walks in, all around his space. Come back out here. I walked him through the whole process. Like, if your dog jumps on the gate, stop moving. Like, learning that jumping brings you closer is not helping your situation. So just stop moving. Wait till the dog gets down before you proceed. He can get closer, and then when you walk in the gate, walk towards him and shut the gate behind you and just walk through. And the dog, walks a couple circles around and then he lies down. He looked at me and he's like, huh. I'm like, you actually see how much less effort you put into this and how much more efficient you just became?
It's almost like when you're trying to like court a girl, if you're like all over her, like trying to, oh my God, can I, it repulses them in a sense. So you have to kind of like plant a little bit of a seed and like walk away. And if they say like, okay, they like that, then you can kind of go back more a little bit. Because when you're too thirsty,
sure.
What was that?
We're going to make this a snippet of what come look at this next podcast of Ian Grant. Bobby's picking up chicks.
It's the truth. Hey, it is the truth, bro. If you are overwhelming to someone that you're trying to court, it doesn't have to be a female. It could be a male. A girl that's coming on to a guy too strong is going to repulse them as well. You know what I mean? It's just you have to like have this like moment to be like, oh, kind of like what they did, instead of them always like, oh, you like, you know what I mean? They got to come to it on their own conclusion in a sense.
There's more growth in that.
100. Yeah.
Yeah, and it builds their confidence too.
Totally. Go back to the mentor that you were going to say, the human. No, we got human and dog mentor. There was another question that we were going to
dog mentor. He was going to answer.
Yeah, we got the dog mentor. It was his friend in Washington D.C., right? And a bunch of other people, Todd, and yeah.
I wanted to like pigeonhole myself into like do things this way and that's it. Like I started studying like Ivan Balabanov stuff during COVID with what he can accomplish with play. That I add a lot of play. I wish that was talked about more in our industry because I don't. So a little golf analogy. I remember my golf coach, when I was doing something wrong in my swing, he always would tell me that I would have to feel the exact opposite to get back to where it needed to be. And so if you think about that for a second, if a dog is scared or nervous, I want to bring all the joy possibly that I can bring out of that dog. That will bring the dog back to neutral.
I got you.
You go from a dog that's typically moving back, fearful, flight, teach that dog that we can play. I'm here to be a teammate. I pump that dog up so that when they relax, it brings them back to neutral. It doesn't bring them all the way to the fearful stage again.
It works from both sides too. Dogs that want to move forward, you have to help bring them back a little bit too. You know what I mean? So it's you're always trying to get back to the pendulum to be in the middle rather than one way or the other. So yeah, it's beautiful.
If you burn your hand on the stove, what's the very first thing you typically do after you burn your finger?
Cold.
Right? So we go from hot to cold to bring our temperature back to where it needs to be.
I think the water is actually only supposed to be slightly above room temperature or slightly below room temperature,
or it blisters more, right? Apparently,
there's something to do that. So that's the overcompensate.
Buddy, actually, next time you burn yourself, grab the thermometer, run it under the water for a little while you're.
You got to make sure that you burn both sides equally. One with cold, and then one regular temperature cold.
Right
so we have a control. You know what I mean?
Because you should practice ahead of time. Do both fingers at the same time, and then test the faucet.
Which one works better? That's awesome. That's awesome.
We're collecting data here. We're scientists.
Yes, absolutely, data.
Yeah.
I feel Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I was gonna chime in and play that. I think that's like the number one lesson I've ever learned about a dog is that to just enjoy that dog. That's what Lynn taught me. That really. Been taught by everyone else, and he said, "Man, you just gotta enjoy yourself with these dogs more. You're gonna be fucking fantastic." And I just say I wasn't, but when he was here the whole time, we did pack walks and shit. Not the whole time, for the record, but we had dogs on long lines on pack walks. They're doing a bunch of things we didn't normally do. And he goes, "Dude, just let him have fun." He goes, "That dog's completely off leash trained. I've seen you work with that dog." He goes, "Just let him go." I'm like, he goes, watch what this, just things in general, just playing with dogs, toys or not, and just enjoying dogs and getting that joy out of them is definitely. I think most people, especially when you're becoming a dog trainer or getting into it, you do that over under compensation, that hot, that really hot and that really cold, and play is very important.
Think about it, like, I don't know about you guys. When you get your driver's license, what's the first thing when you do when you're out on your own? You're going to hammer the gas a little bit, right? Like, and maybe something different for Ben, but like you're going to go.
Oh man,
you're going to go slow in town, but then you're going to like open it up, right? It's too much of one way or the other, and it's not like in the middle. So I think that's kind of. It is. It's an overcompensation.
So when you were driving a car, what taught you to slow down? A car accident?
6 days after I got my license, I hit a dog and killed it.
No, sorry.
It was my basketball coach's assistant. It was our assistant coach. It was at night.
Oh man,
like
sorry about that.
I was just heading out or something, and of course it was dark out. Just a flash right in front of my right front headlight. And then the boom, boom.
Damn it.
Yeah, that's
that. And I just remember like, and the guy came out. He's like, I just let him out, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No, hey, that's not your fault. Just for the record.
But it doesn't make it feel any better or worse.
No,
So that made you go like, God, I better just slow down just in case, because you do never know when something's gonna happen, man.
But usually it's that big consequence, though. I always ask people that, like, what taught you? What made you slow down? Is it a car accident or was it a cop?
I mean,
good question. I like that question.
I think it was 2 weeks after that. I rear-ended with my parents' car, right, driving my license. He rear-ended me, so I go into my like driver's ed mode. You got to pull over because they're going to trade information. So I pull over and he goes flying by.
Bolted. No.
I was like, I don't know why. Even to this day, I don't know if I'd do it. I was like, oh, hell no. I pulled back out. I followed the guy into like a really seedy neighborhood. There was somebody walking around. And I'm like, do you know who lives there? And they told me. So I went to the police department there and told the officer. And he's like, oh, him in New Jersey for stabbing a guy. And I was like, oh.
That's a reason why he would flee the scene of the crime.
Cool. Yeah, we're cool. Don't worry about that.
We're good.
Oh, man. That's hilarious.
That's a really funny story. I can like visualize that.
Something similar happened to my brother, actually. He was riding his bike to school one morning, and somebody just came and clipped him. And he was like, oh my gosh, he fell and tumbled. And the car pulls over, and the guy gets out. He goes, hey, are you all right? My brother's like, yeah, I think so. The guy jumps in the car and just took off on him, dude. And he was like, my brother was like all crippled walking to school afterwards and stuff. So bad that people will do shit like that. You know what I mean? But people are scandalous. It happens.
I was thinking about you guys. So in June, it was on my wife and my son's birthday. Back and getting a bite to eat. We pull into town, and here's a dog just walking across the street on its own. I was like, well, that's weird. And I saw some people off to the side, and I'm like, is that your dog? They're like, no, we've been trying to catch it for 2 hours. Like that statement, I'm like, I'm in, right? Like as a dog trainer, I can't be like, peace out. I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
I spent the next 2 hours trying to corral that dog, and was actually around the police station too. And the crazy part is we always talk about motivation for dogs, right? Like what motivates a dog, what can help us teach the dog what, to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. I had like leftover chicken wings in the to-go box. Dog would take it from about 10 feet from me, but nowhere closer. I remember like tossing some to him. We tried some different food, had a banana in the car, nothing. Kept going over into this huge mud puddle. Over in it, he'd drink out of it or whatever. I was like, is he like this more than the food? Because we have to adjust, right? If something's not working, we have to adjust. I kneel down next to the puddle and I put my finger in this nasty, dirty mud puddle and I flick my hand around and the dog kind of looks at me and his ears kind of perk up. Like, dang, he likes this. So I kept doing this and he'd kind of come over, get close to me and run away, come back, had my we always have our handy dandy slip leashes with us, right? So I had one with me. I started tossing a couple little rocks in front of him, and he gets closer and closer, and I start splashing. Just kind of splashed it, threw the slip leash over the dog, got him. I was like, it was a mud puddle that actually motivated this dog.
Curiosity.
Yeah, right. And so I don't know where his owner is. I don't know how far he's walked or how far he's traveled or anything. It made me think about the time we were trying to catch, I can't remember the dog's name at TCW, like all white dog, right? Like we were all, like covering and surrounding the ranch and trying to like there. And I was like, this is kind of like the city version, the town version of what we were trying to do. But
well, at least what was cool about that was we all had walkie talkies, and we're all kind of like talking to each other, like, oh, we've got the back hill covered here, and this. So that was actually amazing.
Kind of dangerous. Because once that dog was past that hill and we're like in the bushes, there's like rattlesnakes and all types of.
Well, it was November, so it was cooler at that time or something. It was like one of the cooler times, I think.
I'm pretty sure it was rattlesnake season. I'm pretty sure it's all the time.
It's always rattlesnake season up at the DPC.
Also think too, because we were all in agreement on what we were going to handle it when we got near the dog. I think that helped too, right? Like we all knew nobody's going to be diving for the dog. Nobody's going to be.
And Angela brought a dog, the other litter mate or something.
Just follow her lead. We all became followers at that moment and let her do her thing.
Yeah, Angela was the best. All right, well, we're at an hour. Thank you for taking the time to be with us and share your knowledge and your time. And hopefully we could do this again sometime in the future. And we'll definitely be back with you, if that's cool with you.
To have a reunion back at TCW with you guys.
I know, right? Nice. Hey, win, right? That's the big
anything.
Yeah. Hey, but thanks again, Ian. Really appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time.
All right.
Out an and right there in accident. I had to really slow.
Hey.
All right. See you guys.